Hi, folks. So if there's anybody there, let me know. Hey, right. Okay, good. So there's some humans out there. So we've been having technical issues. So I've had to connect to the live stream through a way that I've not done before through, because I normally use OBS. Can you hear me? If you say, yes, we can hear you, then I'll be really, really happy. But maybe you can't hear me. I don't know. Yeah, awesome, cool. Oh, brilliant! That is such a relief. Right, so yeah, this is really dull viewing, I'm sure, but so I just to explain. So I didn't do. I normally do a video on Mondays. Okay, so Monday, in a usual time in a usual week, Monday is one of my video days, and I just haven't had time. It's you know, summer holidays from school, so the kids are off, and there's lots of other stuff going on in life at the moment. So I just didn't get time to do a video today. So in fact, my whole video schedule has been messed up recently, partly because of Fight Camp. So for those of you who follow the socials and all of that kind of stuff, you'll know that we've just done our big annual event. And that had a lot of run-up organisation to it, and you know, there was sort of a couple of weeks running up to it. It was very, very hectic, and then it was also quite busy afterwards as well. So my video making schedule's gone completely haywire. Yeah, so there we go. So I haven't been able to do videos on the days I normally do them. For those who don't know, I normally aim to do videos on Mondays and Thursdays these days. And that's just been completely messed up for the last couple of weeks. So anyway, so for those of you who haven't been here for one of my live streams before, they're usually fairly spontaneous like this. I normally only plan them at maximum a couple of days in advance, and this has been planned approximately 15 to 20 minutes in advance. So here we are. There we go. And I thought, do you know what? Because like I said, I normally like to do a video on Monday. So the fact that I didn't, thought, well, let's do a live stream. I haven't done one for a long, long time. Lucy will probably join me in a bit, but I thought I'd start out by myself, so you get me all to yourself for a bit. So first thing to say, wow, there's loads of comments coming in. That's really nice. So first thing to say is that, yeah, so generally speaking, the channel's been doing really well recently. So thank you to all of the viewers for that. I know that some channels are not, you know, kind of struggling a bit at the moment. So I'm very grateful that I haven't been. Everything's going pretty well for me. And obviously, those of you who follow the channel and have done for a long time will know that I am other things. I'm not just a YouTuber. So I'm part YouTuber, part HEMA coach and events organizer, I'm part antique dealer, and I also do product development and that kind of stuff as well. And I noticed recently actually that some of the product development stuff has been coming up in reviews and stuff online, talking about the windlass Royal Armourist line. There are the next batch of 3 weapons coming from the Royal Armourist windlass line really, really soon. One of those, a rapier. I don't think I'm spoilering you because I've pretty much mentioned what the things are. So we've got a rapier, we've got a left-hand dagger that sort of matches the rapier, same term, same style, both German. And we've also got a basket-hilted broadsword. The original was found in the River Thames in London. So we've got 1 English sword, 2 German swords, but the German swords are rapier and dagger, so you could sort of say they're sort of Italianate, but they're in the German style. And yeah, so complex hilts are complex. They live up to their name. And the dagger was okay. Medieval swords are fine. We're pretty good at doing those now. But a basket hilt and a swept hilt turned out to be hella more complicated than I had imagined. With the result that in the future, if we take on complex hilts again, we will potentially look at 3D scanning, because trying to just work from measurements and photos with such a complex three-dimensional shape is super, super difficult. And there's lots of curvatures. And, when you're dealing with literally 3 dimensions, you've got let's say the rear quillon comes up and it curls around. We've got a horizontal width, we've got a vertical height, but then we've also got the curvature, the nature of the curvature, and how close it comes to the other bars and finger rings and other components. And it's just super complex. So clearly some type of 3D scanning, or something from a replicator from Star Trek would be the best option. That'd be amazing, but it would probably devalue a lot of antiques if we could just replicate them. But anyway, there we go. So yeah, there's 3 more things coming out in the Royal Armouries line. And in addition to that, I'm also working on other things with Windlass. Some of you may have noticed the Elements line. So the first sword, which is a Viking era sword from the Museum of Dublin, or certainly strongly inspired by it. I haven't had hands on it, but we had a lot of measurements of it. So based on that, that's one sword, but we've got a couple of other things coming out really, really soon that are actually both knives, not swords. So with the Elements line, I can look at stuffs in museums. I can base it on an amalgamation of different surviving originals. I can do what I like, basically, and it can be any type of thing, or any type of hand weapon anyway, potentially even other things that aren't weapons, but something that there's a commercial desire for. So any type of sword, any type of dagger, and I'd welcome any of you who follow this channel to hound me in the comments, at least, maybe not by phone or something, but by email, or by messenger or whatever, and say, if you've got good ideas of things which you think we should be reproducing that maybe haven't been reproduced before. And in some cases, certain other companies, I won't name specific other companies, have done a replica of a certain type of thing. We did a Cinque Dea. I strongly believe that the Windlass Royal Armourers and Matt Easton collaboration, we were the first people to make a mass-produced Cinque Dea, which is actually good. Now, there have been other mass-produced Cinque Deas in the past, but were any of them good? I've never seen a good one. Whereas I obviously believe that the Windlass Royal Armourers one is really good because it's very closely based on the original one that they've got at the Royal Armourers. So yeah, so things like that, things which maybe have either never been done before in terms of mass manufacture, or have been done but not very well, and we can do them better. And obviously it doesn't have to be Royal Armourers. It could be something that's in the Royal Armourers, or it could be something that's somewhere else, or just another random thing. So I'm all ears, especially with my big ears, but I'm all ears, and always looking for new things that we can work on, because it's damn good fun. I really enjoy it, actually. So I've got loads of comments here, which is really nice. So because I'm in a new, okay, so we've got 87 people online at the moment. So that's good for something which is not planned. And you presumably have just been browsing YouTube or got some kind of notification that I've just gone live. That is really cool. So thank you for joining me. So thank you to people in Virginia, people in Alberta, Canada, people in, say where you're from, San Francisco. I've always wanted to go to San Fran and I've never been. And Brazil, awesome. I have been to Brazil twice. Check that out. I've been to Brasilia twice in a work capacity, because I used to work for the British government, and I've been out to our embassy out there in Brasilia a couple of times. That's right. I used to have a serious job. Thank God I don't anymore. But Brazil's really cool. I like Brazilians, nice, friendly people. We've got loads of Brazilians over here, actually. And a few of my friends do capoeira as well. So Nick England says, when can we ask questions? You can ask questions anytime, Nick. You just go for it. I'm working my way down here. And please remember to like and subscribe. Yeah, if you're watching a live stream and you're not subscribed, seriously, what are you doing with your life? Go and subscribe now. But wow, someone's tuning in from work. Good. Well, I hope your boss doesn't catch you, or maybe you are self-employed. But either way, good. You go for it. And what's my here's a great question. So Dom Jones of Wales, who even has the Welsh flag for a avatar image, which that is full commitment to Welsh identity. Wales, incidentally, I found out only recently, only has a population of 3 million. That's really small for a big bit of land, isn't it? But anyway, I love Wales. I grew up going to South Wales as a kid quite a lot, and now have quite a lot of friends in North Wales as it happens. But anyway, so what's my favorite fantasy sword from film? Well, do you know what? In terms of good swords, obviously there's various swords from Lord of the Rings, which are really, really good. But if we can expand this to TV shows, then I really, really like the Peter Johnson design swords in the most recent House of the Dragon. I was trying to think of the name of it. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones series. So House of the Dragon. I absolutely love the swords and the dagger, the eared dagger that Matt Smith has got. I love I love the weapons in House of the Dragon. Really, really cool. Way better than in the original Game of Thrones series, which were not great swords in terms of the design. But the new ones are awesome. Dark Sister, absolutely gorgeous. So it does look a bit painful to hold, but maybe it's not. I don't know. Peter knows what he's doing. Other swords are in film, if we don't include television or streaming or whatever. Movies, you know, I love the Conan swords. Funnily enough, I actually love Valeria's sword, the sort of scimitar, the fantasy idea of a scimitar, more than Conan's sword, but I do like Conan's sword. I prefer the Conan the Destroyer version to Conan the Barbarian version. I love, it is fantasy, so Excalibur. Okay, so I grew up, or rather as a teenager, I discovered Excalibur and just absolutely lived on that movie, watching it on loop for years. So I love particularly the Excalibur sword from the movie Excalibur. And gosh, I'll have to come back to that. I'll think of others as I go along. There's probably, I have a weird love of Beastmaster's sword, actually. I do not like the swords in Red Sonja, but I really like the movie. I think Lucy's just coming in. Hello. She comes with a drink and
phone
and I don't have a.
Do you need a drink?
Fantasy swords. Yeah, can I have a whiskey and coke?
Can.
Fantasy. What's your favourite fantasy sword?
Oh, Lionel's sword.
Oh my God! Yeah, with the Eye of Thundera. I've spent too long talking about this already, but yes, the Thundercats. I freaking love Thundercats, and I've recently rewatched the first season with my 6-year-old, and I really, really like it. I really wish they'd I know they did reboot it in about 2011, but unfortunately only did one season, which I haven't. I've only seen a few episodes of that. But yeah, anyway, Lionel's sword, and I guess if we're going back to cartoon swords, then I've got to say. He-Man's sword, even though it's awful as a design, but it's iconic. But no, Lionel's sword, yeah, the Sword of Omens. The Sword of Omens, that's what it's called. There we go. I've really gone to town on that question. David Washington, 1869. What's relevant with 1869? Tell us what.
A personal question.
What's important about? He could have been amongst us.
Can I go at the other side of you?
No, because I need.
Then I can find you your questions, which you've been missing.
Okay. Anyway, if I had to pick one saber, what would it be? I can't pick. Look, seriously, look at the wall behind me. How can I pick one saber? But one of the most special sabers I have, I haven't done a video on it yet, is that one right there.
Which one?
That one where my finger, the one at the bottom of that rack.
That's a good one.
Because it is 100%. It's Wilkinson made, but it's 100% non-regulation. The very unusual non-regulation grip. It's got a steel scroll hilt, and it's got a Russian pattern blade, which is a very rare pattern of blade. I'll make a video about it at some point. But anyway, I have problems pointing and looking at that sword there. But there are other swords up here which are historically very important. But as a sword, I freaking love that one. But I have others around here as well. I've got so many swords. I have I've got a super chat. Wow.
2 super chats.
I just did that thing where I scrolled and lost where I was. So Himalayan blades. So I'm sorry I haven't got back to your email yet. I will get back to you soon. But as I just explained in the first part of this video, I've kind of been away and I'm on summer holidays with the kids and stuff at the moment. So, but anyway, says, thank you so much, Matt, for putting this wonderful work on the internet over the years. Your work's been an inspiration to me. Thank you from Zafar at HEMA Blades. And keep making, I've actually got one of your kukris down here. I can't quite get it from where I am now, but it's just down here. Beautiful kukris. Keep doing some good work and we'll talk soon, okay? So, Lucy, what other questions?
Someone asked a question about whether you'd ever tried swimming in harness, which I thought was a brilliant question.
The answer is no, and I'm not going to be.
Should, because that would be internet gold.
So you want me to die?
No, just in shallow water. Come on.
That's not really swimming then, is it? That's
paddling. I'm going to move this way because my face
flapping
is
around.
face.
Anyway, so we've got. Right. Okay. Have I ever played Chivalry 2? So do you know what, my friend Alex Abdul Harbi, if you're watching this, so he's actually the guy, there's a link up here. If you follow our Facebook page, I put up a photo of a portrait he's done of me in my armor from fight camp. He always used to tell me that I should play Chivalry 2, but I've never played Chivalry 2. So there we go. There is a connection there, but no, unfortunately, I haven't heard it, but I heard it is quite a fun. Big up. So red coated 2517 says, big up the Kolishmard of context for Matt's next replica sword. Does that mean you want us to make a replica of the Kolishmard small sword? We could. However, I have to disappoint you slightly on this. So I've actually talked to various companies about making triangular section blades, both small swords and S-stocks. And I will tell you, not many people want to do it. They're really difficult to make. Basically, you have to, I mean, you can forge it, or if you do it by stock removal, you have to remove a lot of material. And apparently they are a nightmare to heat treat because they tend to go, they tend to bend in the heat treat. So my understanding is that small swords.
There's a fly in my
she's
face.
seeing the ghosts again.
It's a real fly.
I've got my, yeah. What was I saying? I
don't know.
I've lost it now. Anyway, the fly has robbed me of all my thoughts.
Someone says you look hard as nails in the photo of you from the Armoured Fighter event, and I don't know which one they mean, or whether they mean the one at fight camp where you look like you're gritty.
Oh, okay, maybe. Yeah, but so the recent photo, I would tell you, I don't even want to think about what temperature my internal organs were at that point. So it was a pretty hot day, and doing that in armor in that heat, and then we did some stuff outside in the sun, and that just broke me. So a funny thing is, people often ask me about armored stuff in the sun and in the heat, and it's just a massive problem. So many of you will know that we do the Battle of Tewkesbury reenactment every year, and the problem is it seems to be getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And I'm not going to bang on about climate change and everything else, but the fact is, whatever, it is getting hotter at the same time of year when we do Tewkesbury, so much so that there are some people now talking about moving Tewkesbury earlier in the year. Now, I'm actually fully for that because, number one, safety. Number two, we'll get more people on the battlefield because literally people are just having to just not go on because they can't handle the heat in armor. But also, thirdly, the Battle of Tewkesbury happened in May and we do the event in July. So for all the reasons, I think we should move it to May.
I've covered every question for you.
Right, so that guy Kyle says, has Matt Easton done any content on the Bryce sword at the Broomhall estate that was supposedly carbon dated from the 13th century, has distal taper and broad taper profile with an iron crossguard? I haven't, but that might be something for me to look into. In terms of, so you can't carbon date a sword. So just go back to that. So I think there might be a misunderstanding here. What have they carbon dated? So you can't carbon date metal. You can only carbon date organic material. Sorry, former archaeologist here. Now, dating metal is difficult, and this is one of the reasons that it's really difficult to actually date swords. So we can date bones. You can date, fingernails, or you can date wood. But swords are really difficult to date. Now, if you take the William Wallace's so-called sword, if you look at it, it certainly isn't William Wallace's sword, but we know that in the 16th, 17th centuries, it was messed around with. Also, it was never known as William Wallace's sword, I think, until the 19th century, because it was stored in Wallace Tower at Stirling Castle, if I remember correctly. So anyway, some people have x-rayed that and said that the blade of that is made of 3 parts, and therefore part of it could have been William Wallace's sword. Personally, I don't believe it is. I think it was just made as a bearing sword out of some bits and pieces they had lying around. But there we go. But no, I don't know about that. I'll have to look that up. Oh, is this the Bruce's sword? Ah, that will be William the Bruce's sword, maybe, rather than Bryce. Right, okay. If you're talking about Robert the Bruce's sword, I know of it, but I think it falls unfortunately into the same category as William Wallace's sword. I think it's a 19th century creation, but I'm willing to look into that, because if I'm wrong, then that's great. Hold on, what's this? So I don't know how to say this. Sounds Polish. Gaz. That's my best rendition of it. It says, what's your favorite Renaissance movie or series? Renaissance. Oh, I don't know. Movie or series. I don't know. I'll have to come back to that. Can you think of it? Is there something?
Ask me what period of history that is referring to.
So post-medieval or late medieval.
Give me some examples.
Well, like Wolf Hall or anything set in the Tudor period.
Oh, okay. No.
So I guess this is Renaissance. The Three Musketeers movies from what's his name? Is it Lester, the director's name? From the 1970s and 80s with Michael York and Oliver Reed and all of that lot. I love those movies a lot. I guess that counts as Renaissance, doesn't it? There's also a couple of Shakespearean things which really, I mean, Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet is pretty good. But yeah, funnily enough, I think most of the kind of swordy movies that I like tend to be. Actually, no. Now am I thinking about it? So I've thought of more. So I love Le Bossu, the French film Le Bossu, which means the Hunchback. Beautiful movie. Cyrano de Bergerac's pretty good. Yeah, the French are really good at doing Musketeer era movies, perhaps unsurprisingly. But look, here's a question. So is this a super chat? That is a super chat. So thank you. Ham on toast. Ham on toast. I see what you did there. I was going to go jam on toast. Jam on toast. Is it jam on toast or ham on toast? Anyway, says, were Yari ever used as heavy lances like in Europe?
What's a Yari?
So they weren't used as heavy lances because they'd be light lances.
What's a Yari?
There's 2 of them over there. They're those Japanese spears in the corner. So yeah, they were used as cavalry lances, but they weren't, as far as I'm aware, they weren't couched under the arm. They were used like a spear on horseback. But 100% Yari were used as lances on horseback by Japanese cavalry. I was going to say samurai, but of course most of them wouldn't have been samurai. So yeah, they were, but not heavy lances. Heavy lances are a very particular thing that only existed in Europe, as far as I can think. Anyway,
that's a good question.
Do I have a good question? So MeTube713 says, do you have recommendations for modern sharp sabers for cutting? You pick the most difficult questions for me, don't you? Similar to the military sabers on the wall. Yeah, so yeah, there are some good makers of sharp sabers. There's a couple of makers in Poland who are making pretty good sharp sabers, but not military style sabers. They're making like Polish Hungarian sabers. In terms of the sort of, I keep pointing the wrong way, in terms of the sort of 19th century military sabers, no. We have talked about doing some good quality replicas with Windlass, and Windlass do actually make modern sabers for serving officers, you know, so They're very good at shagreen and the wire wraps and all of this stuff. And I think, has LK Chen? LK Chen did a military saber, actually. Yeah, 1 or 2. Yeah, LK Chen. So yeah, you've got the 1796 light cavalry saber I did with windlass. You've got that. LK Chen's done a couple of military sabers, including another 1796, although I would argue the windlass one is more historically accurate. But they've done another one, a Prussian saber as well. So there are a few out there, yeah. I haven't actually seen the LK Chen sabers like in hand. I've only seen pictures. But yeah, so there are a few around.
I didn't realise it would be such a challenging question. I thought you'd have like 3 off the top of your head, but you seem conflicted.
Yeah, well, it depends exactly what you want. That's a 1796 light cavalry saber, which is a very popular model of saber. Go for either LK Chen or windlass. Personally, I'd recommend the windlass, but I think they're both good. Obviously, I've worked with both companies, so you know, there we go. And I don't, just so you know, because I do work with windlass, I don't get any commission or anything like that out of the windlass 1796. I literally just sold them an antique one, and they replicated it. So I'm neutral in terms of bias, I think. But personally, I think LK Chen never had an original to work from. They only had pictures, and I think the windlass came out more historically accurate.
So you have another super chat.
Awesome. From Shut Up Matt.
How rude.
Saw you in Richard III, How to Put Armour on Bent Spine documentary. Yes.
What documentary was that?
It was the one years ago I did with Toby and Dave. So there's a story about that. So I got invited by the documentary makers to come and film a segment. Toby Capwell was there. Bob Woosnam Savage from the Royal Armourers was there, and David Rawlings from the London Longsword Academy. Old, good friend. Not calling him old, saying old friend.
He's
old. Long-standing friend. He is at least a year older than me. Yeah, I think 2 or 3 years older than me. But anyway, very good friend of mine going back to the late 90s. Anyway, I got invited along to talk about poleaxe stuff, and I did. And it was an insanely hot day and in a very hot place, and I sweated a lot. But we had an awesome fun day, had lots of cool chats. Dom Smee, who was the guy with the spinal sort of condition that was similar to Richard III's, still in contact with him to some extent. He's a really nice guy. However, for those of you who don't know, when a documentary films stuff, they film approximately 3 times as much material as they actually use in the end. And I got cut out. So there we go. So you can see me in the background, but I'm never actually talking on camera. I remember the one now. And I wasn't that bothered. I actually found it extremely amusing that I was in a documentary where I'm just, with no explanation at all, standing randomly in the background, like I've been summoned. I thought it was really funny. Yeah. By the way, we're 150 people now, which I'm really stoked about, given that there was no warning whatsoever that I'd be doing this.
And to the people who are asking, yes, I'm Matt's wife. Hi. I had a question.
I guess it's been a long time since we did a video together on the channel, hasn't it?
I think we did one on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Mostly I just helped to keep the questions on the screen and to keep things very vaguely on track.
So I guess it's possible that quite a lot of people who are maybe newer to the channel haven't actually seen you before.
Hi, I'm Lucy. Nice to meet you.
So there we go. I am married, amazingly. So, I did find a woman who was willing to tie the knot, now children with me. It's amazing, isn't it? It just shows that you can have an overwhelming, obsessive, house-filling passion like I do, and make a YouTube video about weapons, and you can still get married and have children. There we go. There's
hope for us all. See, so I've been distracted because someone's asked a question about jiu-jitsu.
Right, let me put my glasses on. So TWeb5 or Tweb5 says, right, Tweb says, "Hi Matt, may I ask, did you used to train in jiu-jitsu at the Budokwai Judo Center in Battersea?" No, that must have been some other bald guy.
But it wasn't
no,
Preston.
I didn't. So I have never trained in jiu-jitsu until
You've trained thrice.
I hadn't finished the sentence. I have never trained in jiu-jitsu until about 6 months ago.
Yeah, so he's been 3 times and shows great promise.
So Lucy is the jiu-jitsu person here. She does BJJ with a couple of different people, and she recently. So you're a 3-stripe white belt.
I'm a 3-stripe white belt.
Yeah, but so you've been training for how long? A couple of years?
A year and a half.
Year and a half. Yeah. And Lucy recently did her first competition. So well done, Lucy.
It was so fun. I lost, but it was great.
But yeah, and you're now planning your 2nd and 3rd and everything else coming. So Lucy's now becoming a white belt competition BJJ fighter. But you're not going to do MMA.
I'm not, because I don't like being punched in the face.
Lucy really doesn't like being punched in the face.
I'm just not a fan of being punched in the face. Accidental punches in the face occasionally, but not general ones.
And also, Lucy has a brand new, as of like last week, channel talking about her journey in the world of martial arts and the white belt's journey in BJJ. Hopefully one day to be a blue belt.
It's not really about that, but it is covering martial arts, and it talks about HEMA a bit as well. It's called Lucy Kate Fights.
Yeah,
check it out if you like. Matt, you might like me.
Yeah,
don't worry if you don't. It's a different kind of thing.
I put links up to it in a couple of places, but just to finish off with Webs, I'm wondering if it was you who helped me and my friend found our university jiu-jitsu club in the 1990s. No, it was not.
But that's so cool that you still do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I actually always thought about doing Japanese jiu-jitsu rather than Brazilian jiu-jitsu when I was at university in the 1990s. But it conflicted with something else I was doing. But I used to do Kung Fu, which was the class after Jiu-Jitsu. So I used to see the Jiu-Jitsu people doing their Jiu-Jitsu as we were waiting to go in for Kung Fu. So yeah, when I was younger, I did fencing, modern fencing, archery, lots. Archery was my main thing, actually. But modern fencing at school and university. And then at university, I did Hung Gar, Tiger Crane, Kung Fu for a couple of years. Trained, a couple of times a week for a couple of years, got really into it, and then drifted on. Well, basically, I drifted into HEMA. So once I started HEMA, then that kind of took over everything. And that's when I kind of stopped doing archery and modern fencing and Kung Fu and just focused on HEMA. So, yeah.
Just so you know, if you ask a question that's about like weapons-based self-defense stuff, he can't answer it. It's like, so it's not that we're ignoring you or anything, but if you ask something that could get Matt in legal trouble, it's going to stay in the comments.
So there's a couple of things. Don't move. So Jason Konopinski says the Borgias, which I've always meant to watch, actually, but I haven't got around to. So at some point I'll watch it. I know it's on one of the streaming services. And Davina Duckworth says Matt Easton is a professional nerd.
Fact.
I mean, the evidence would suggest that is absolutely a true statement. Yeah, I've literally made a job out of. In fact, I've made like 3 jobs out of being.
It's one of the greatest things to be.
Yeah. So there we go. And at the end of the day, it got me out of working for the UK government, which these days can only be a good thing. So, Matt, you choose the curve over the straight blade. Why? Well, bear in mind that this is. If you ask me to choose one saber, there are many things wrapped up in that. So it's like how rare it is, the history of it. So I've researched the guy. I always point with the wrong hand. I've researched the guy, the unusual, like I say, the rarity of it, the particular design, the look of it, and all of these things. If I was actually fighting, first of all, it depends. Am I on horse? Am I on foot? But generally speaking, I'm really boring. Actually, I've gone in my saber fencing, which obviously is something I do all the time and teach and spar and stuff. I have gone from curved blades to straight blades, and I've now gone back to curved blades. And I can actually answer the question, why do I prefer a slightly curved blade? Because I like stabbing people in the hand. So in saber, you've got a really good hand guard, but you can stab around the guard if you've got a curved blade, and I really like doing it. It's a cheap shot, but let's face it, stabbing someone in the hand is completely valid. And if you were fighting in self-defense or, in a duel or whatever else, if you can stab someone in the hand, you stab them in the hand. And the curved blade is beneficial at getting around people's physical guard, the hand guard, but also their guards that they make with the sword as well. Moreover, curved swords I find slightly nicer in the bind. They tend to wobble a bit less, and they do cut a little bit better. I find it easier to direct the edge. So for all the reasons I've outlined in previous videos, I do prefer a bit of curve on a saber blade. That being said, if I was using a rapier, then clearly I wouldn't want a curved rapier. It's a different thing for a different. But yeah, for a saber, a slight bit of curve. Otherwise, I wouldn't use a saber. I'd use a broadsword or a backsword or a rapier or whatever.
Someone said you're a HEMA practitioner. What is your favourite type of weapon for sparring?
Well, I've just answered that question, I guess. Garft, Gevin. Oh, Lucy's moving it again. Garft, Gevin, good night. My favourite type of weapon for sparring, I was going to say saber, but actually, is it? I really enjoy rapier these days, both single rapier and rapier and dagger. So at the moment, my go-to weapons in my regular sessions are either rapier and dagger, or single rapier, or saber. I do both of those.
Fun, or just
I like
one-handed?
I like one-handed swords. So funnily enough, I actually think that I'm reasonably competent at spear as well. And that's not spear against sword, that's spear against other spear users. So I really enjoy spears. So I really enjoy spear, really enjoy rapier and dagger, and really enjoy saber. I would like to be good at sword and buckler, but I kind of suck at it.
Sword and buckler is my favourite. That is my favourite thing. But I am probably on paper better at saber than I am at sword.
And for many years, I did longsword. I most of my competition kind of life years ago, because I haven't competed for years, was longsword. But I've never been particularly good at longsword. I did it because I wanted to be good at it, but I'm naturally better with one-handed swords. Oh, a knife.
There we go. Love a knife.
I freaking love Bowie knife sparring. It's so much fun. So knife as well. But basically one-handed things except for spear. Right, that is a good question. So Dylan Van Vilk says, good evening, hi from South Africa. That is a good Dutch name, as I imagine it's fairly common in South Africa. What is your opinion of Filipino martial arts? Awesome.
Yeah, they're cool.
So basically, if I wasn't doing HEMA, I'd be doing Filipino martial arts. Simple as.
Do you think?
100%.
Not jiu-jitsu?
Nah.
Sad times.
I like weapons. I've done a little bit of pugilism a long time ago before and I've done little bits of other unarmed martial arts, as I've mentioned already. But I like weapons and I like weapon martial arts. If I wasn't doing HEMA or couldn't do HEMA, or I had more spare time, Filipino martial arts. Really interesting, and for numerous reasons, partly because there's so many different weapons you can do in Filipino martial arts. There's different styles, different traditions, different schools, but it works. It's really good. And I always say to people, if you want to do knife stuff, then I actually think HEMA is really good for knife stuff if you've got a good instructor and a good club. But in addition, I would say do some Filipino martial arts or train with FMA people if you possibly can do. Not to say that there isn't some bullshit in FMA. There is in all martial arts.
What?
Yeah, there is. Any martial art will have some things where you look at it and you're like, I'm not really sure that. But anyway, but no, I've got really a huge amount of respect for Filipino martial arts. And in addition, I love the culture of it. Filipino, the sort of the mentality and the kind of camaraderie and stuff you get in Filipino martial arts strike me as really nice, really good. Similar sort of ambience that I get with things like capoeira. Seems really positive. Some martial arts, there's a lot of negativity. Lucy's getting text messages from someone.
So sorry, one of my friends is watching this live stream and he got a big advert for pants over the top of it, which is we're really mature, so that was very funny.
So yeah, anyway, thanks a lot for the question about FMA. brilliant. I love Filipino martial arts, and in fact, I have actually tried to get together with clubs at various points, but I don't anymore. I'm just nowhere. There's like nothing near me at all. But one day, if I find something that's a bit closer, I will almost certainly dabble in FMA.
You like this question,
right? So I can't read your username. I have a question. If it were fashionable again today for people to carry swords the way that people wear suits, I try not to wear a suit these days. I did it for far too many years. And if carrying a sword were a social obligation, what kind of sword would people carry? Do you know what? I think probably small swords, because
they're light.
Well, look, there's two ways of going about it. If they're going to wear long swords, long bladed swords for dueling, then it's going to be small swords for all the same reasons that people used to carry small swords in the 18th century. Or would movies make them all wear katanas? You could say, well, they'd probably wear Lord of the Rings replicas and katanas and ninja swords because that's what's shown in movies and anime and everything else. That might be it. But for practical purposes, if they were carrying them from a kind of open carry or concealed carry for a self-defense implement, I suspect what we'd see them carrying are things like that. Bowie knives. Because they're the most practical. Think about cars. So I always point out, look, even if sword wearing was socially acceptable or normal or fashionable, cars put a massive kind of stick in the spoked wheel of that bicycle, because you can't get in and out of a car wearing a sword. Trust me, I've tried. You know, it's one thing sitting on a horse wearing a sword, works fine. Getting in a car wearing a sword doesn't work fine. Where do you put it? Even if you carry it in your hand, where do you put it? So yeah, I don't think that swords in a world with cars would ever be popular. I think large knives might be.
Someone's mentioned cookeries in the comments, and yeah, if I was allowed to walk around carrying something, it would fully be a cookery.
Lucy is massive into cookeries. I love cookeries, but she loves them even more than me, I think.
Can you just say hi, Connor, and wave at the camera for me?
Oh, Connor, hi Connor. So Brass Band Mission says San Francisco loves Schola Gladiatoria.
Yay!
I mean, I suspect that's not literally true,
but it is true.
But it's nice to know there's maybe, you know, a couple of people in San Francisco that love Schola Gladiatoria, because yeah, like I say, I'd love to go there one day. Seems like a cool place. Yeah, so we can see other people here sharing their love for Filipino martial arts.
Someone's asked about being in full plate armor in freezing cold temperatures.
Yeah, so I have been in cold places, but I don't know about freezing cold. I think I've been in kind of like 5 degrees, 3 degrees above zero. I've not been in below zero in plate harness as far as I can remember. But the
does it hurt when you touch the metal?
No,
the metal's cold?
No, it just warms up. So to be honest, it's not a problem that I've seen. So the fact is, generally the problem is getting hot in armor. So the one thing you've got to think about armor is it's not like clothing, because it doesn't breathe like cloth does. So your perspiration just gathers underneath it. But the armor is a conductor. Okay, so just like your radiator in your house, it heats up quickly, but it also cools down quickly. So whereas clothing retains heat, armor heats up really quickly and is hot while your body is hot, but then when you stop, it cools down quite quickly and actually saps the heat out and radiates. So the thing is if you are warm inside, it will warm the armor up, but theoretically it won't insulate you at all. So if you are in a cold environment and you're not moving and keeping your body warm, you could get very cold very quickly, because underneath the armor you don't have any real insulation. You've got a thin doublet on, no padding or anything, so you're going to get cold quickly. It'll be like walking around in the freezing cold in like just a shirt, essentially. So what you need to do is put a cloak or an arming coat over the top of it, which is exactly what they did. Because bear in mind, in Europe in the 14th and 15th centuries, there was the so-called mini ice age. It wasn't quite an ice age, but it was cold. Okay, and that was partly related to Krakatoa erupting and putting a load of dust up into the atmosphere. Crops failed, all this kind of stuff. At least you didn't know about this. And so
tell us more.
So halfway around the world. So essentially, it was a mini version of a nuclear winter for a long time. And so in the 14th and 15th centuries, it was very chilly. The River Thames froze over. People could skate on it into the 16th century. You can't even imagine the River Thames freezing these days, although it's a lot wider than it
certainly not these days.
But yeah,
wow.
so very different climate. So people wearing multiple layers of clothing, fur, woolen hats, all of this kind of stuff all year round wasn't so much of a problem for them. Whereas we go reenacting the Battle of Tewkesbury in 35 degrees C, and it is a problem for us. So wearing plate armor in the 15th century, usually, maybe in Southern Europe like Spain and Italy, it probably got pretty hot. However, in England, for example, you could more comfortably wear armor all year round than you can now.
Nice. There's a cool question here. Chaos Omega says, if I wanted to learn how to use a kukri authentically, are there any sources or instructors for that?
So the short answer is there are, but it's complicated. So there are modern kukri training methods in both the British Army Gurkhas and the Indian Army Gurkhas. For those of you who don't know, after Indian independence, in 1947, the Gurkhas, so the Indian army used to be part of, obviously, the British Raj, but after separation between the rest of the British Empire and India got its own army, and it kept some of the Gurkhas. So essentially, some Gurkhas became Indian army, some Gurkhas became British army. And there have been, both during World War I and II, there have been some training methods, but it was kept within the Gurkhas. And then in more recent times, they've sort of revived it because I think it sort of died out. That being said, what I've seen of modern kukri training, how to be diplomatic, it looks a little bit invented, and it doesn't seem to have very much relation to what they were doing in the 19th century. Now, we do have descriptive accounts of kukris being used in the 19th century, even hunting tigers. So this was obviously we don't condone hunting tigers these days, but in the 19th century, long before the British, big game hunters turned up, tigers were a problem. In fact, I'm going to go on a slight tangent here. In 1878, there is something called the India Arms Act, and this was a disarming act. Okay, and this is often, in fact, there were debates in British Parliament about it, because in the 19th century, British people still considered themselves to have the right to bear arms. This went back to the 1689, I think it was, John Locke's what basically became part of it became the American Constitution, and the right to bear arms in the American Second Amendment comes from the previous English right to bear arms of 1689. And in fact, they decided in 1878 to disarm the Indian population. And this created a big problem. There were three exempted groups. The Sikhs were exempted, the Gurkhas the Nepalese were exempted, and the Burmese were exempted, interestingly. Burma was considered part of India then, or kind of adjacent to anyway. And interestingly, this led to, because villagers used to deal with the leopards and tigers and other things that were a problem locally themselves, they used to shoot them or trap them or whatever, but they couldn't do that because they weren't necessarily allowed to have guns or swords or whatever from 1878. And this was what created a rural epidemic, essentially, of people being predated by large predators in India. And this was what in turn led to the massive slaughter of big game hunters coming in to deal with man-hunters. Man-hunting leopards and man-hunting tigers were the main two, but there were occasionally bears and hyenas and other things that were a problem. And so, yeah, one thing leads to another. Governments making bad decisions leads to people dying leads to animals dying, and leads to extinction. So there we go. That is a simplification, but those things do connect.
That's the simplification. Damn.
So But we do have descriptions of people hunting tigers with kukris, coming back to this. There are techniques described, and they clearly had methods for using kukris which got lost with time.
I think my chair's higher than yours.
Yeah.
So here's a question.
Right. Alejandro Liabano. That's my best attempt. Have you heard about the Blossfechten sparring they're doing in the Fencers Guild around Central Europe with no protection, trying to follow the rule sets they used by the Fedefechter or Maxbruder? So, possibly. I am aware that there are some people, I believe, in Poland and parts of Germany that meet up in the woods and have fights with sharp swords.
Sorry.
You thought I was going to talk about dogging, didn't you?
I just wasn't quite sure where it was going.
I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but if it is, those people aren't doing it according to the rule sets used by the Fedefechter and the Maxbruder, because the Fedefechter and the Maxbruder used blunt feather swords and struck with the flat, with the idea of breaking the skin of the head. Now, I'm sorry if you know that, because you might be referring to something I don't know about. So if you're talking about the people that meet up and use sharp swords and then get pretty nasty cuts as a result, I do know about those maniacs, but I'm not aware of anybody doing no protection, Maxbruder style, striking with the flat with a feather, as far as I know. I know people that do it like friendly, like control, but I don't know people that are really going for it. No, but let us know in the comments.
Another cool question. Oh, you go.
So Jason Konopinski says, as you look over the past 20 plus years of HEMA practice, how has your focus changed? I don't know that it has, actually. I used to care about competing. I guess
cared about longsword a lot more.
Yeah, I guess the period, the historical periods and weapons that I'm focused on. So I used to be entirely, like, really 100% focused on medieval. In my 20s, and then in my 30s, I got interested in saber, and then in my late 30s and 40s, I got interested in rapier as well, and side sword and stuff. So yeah, I've expanded and moved the main focuses, but I've got back into medieval as I've got into armor. So I've obviously rediscovered my love of armored stuff, and that has got me more into the medieval stuff again, even to the point where I do actually occasionally spar longsword.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I have started picking up longswords again. I'm not very good at it, but yeah, if I have to fight with a medieval weapon, I'll go for a Messer these days. So there we go.
Have you done much with Messer?
I spar with it. Yeah, but I don't teach it because I don't know. Like if you look at Le Cookner, for example, I don't know a lot of Le Cookner's techniques, but I know the core ones.
Do you know what you should do? You should go to that popular event, Messerfest.
Yes.
Which you can book in the north of England and is run by awesome people.
What weapons do they cover at Messerfest?
I think mostly Messer.
Oh, right, okay.
So there's a strong Messer vibe, but no, genuinely great people, and heard wonderful things about the event. So, you have been asked by Goose Hunter 356, are you interested in metallurgy? Have you ever forged a utility knife, hatchet, etc.?
So am I interested in metallurgy? Yes. And have I forged a utility knife or hatchet? I have forged a knife, and I've forged a spearhead. In fact, it's on video. So yeah, I have forged a few things under the tutelage of people who actually know what they're doing, who include Will Sherman, who you'll know from making the arrows on Arrows versus Armour on Todd's channel, and under Paul Binns, who's a quite well-known sword maker and knife and spear and everything else maker, and good friend of mine. Yeah, so yes, I am interested in metallurgy a lot, actually, although I've never, because I gave up chemistry at school and never did any exams in chemistry, so I've never done it academically, but I am very interested in metallurgy, and I need to know a little bit about it because I'm involved in the manufacture of the product development of swords and knives, and even bayonets. I can't really talk about that at the moment, but yeah, so I am interested in metallurgy partly because I just am, and partly because I need to know some in order to do the product development stuff I do. So Ghost from England says, what's your take on the length of reenactment versus real Dane axes? I suspect you saw the post that I saw maybe yesterday on Facebook about this. Real ones seem to be much shorter to the extent of one-handedness nearly. What do you think why do you think, reenactment uses such long ones? That's a loaded question. So I don't necessarily agree that I understand. So particularly in some reenactment circles, people are using very long Dane axes, like as tall as a poleaxe or longer, because it's useful to hit people over shield walls. That's why I think they do it. Do I think there's any evidence for ones that long? No. Do I think that all Dane axes were like as long as a katana, which is what some people are arguing? No, I don't think that either. I think based on Bayeux tapestry and other period art, and we've got to take the archaeology from Ireland, I'll come back to that in a second, into consideration here. I think there were a range of lengths. But here's the elephant in the room, is that we have a lot more heads than we have shafts. Obviously, wood doesn't normally survive, but in Ireland, it has survived. But here's the problem. The axes, as I understand it, the axes that survive in Ireland are not necessarily typical of Dane axes everywhere else, particularly if we look at the size of the heads. So I have studied the surviving heads in the Museum of London and the British Museum, and there are others around as well, and they are much bigger than the Irish axes. So my problem is, as far as I recall, anyway, I might correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I can recall. So my problem is, yes, we have shafts from Ireland, but they're on smaller axe heads. If we look at the massive axe head there's a really huge one in the British Museum, and if we look at the fairly large axe heads in the Museum of London, it would suggest a larger weapon. And if we look at Bayeux tapestry, it's difficult to work out lengths of anything from Bayeux tapestry because it's somewhat abstract art. But my personal interpretation is that they are longer than some people are suggesting. So as with everything, when we have a myth, we have a myth busting, and I think the myth of the too long axes, that's true. Some of the axes are too long, but then in trying to counter that misconception, I think some people have gone too far in the other direction and are trying to say that all of the Dane axes were way shorter. And I think there was a spectrum of lengths, just as there was a spectrum of size of the axe heads. And I think they probably varied from about shoulder height down to about hip height. I think we had a variety.
Can I ask, who are the people who are saying that they're long, and who are these people who are having the opinions? Are they historian people or reenacted people or just
a mixture?
Internet people?
Just a mixture.
Okay, cool.
A mixture of all sorts. It is an open question. It's one of the great questions of pre-Norman arms and armor history and archaeology.
Crazy. Highlighted another question for you.
Yeah. So Stephen Garrett says, do you think roundel?
I think he means rondel.
Rondel
like
combat.
Dagger.
Right. So do you think rondel combat is on a par with Bowie knife combat? It's just a very different thing, and I teach both, and I do both. So it's very clear that using a Bowie knife in the 19th century was a bit like using a little sword. So much so that fencing masters were teaching it. And all of the sources we've got suggest that the way they used Bowie knives, a lot of the time, at least when it was in a structured kind of taut way, was like a little miniature messer or saber. Rondel dagger is completely different. Rondel dagger is a very specialized weapon for a specialized purpose. You can't really hold it in exactly the same way as you hold a Bowie knife. Obviously, a Bowie knife has an edge. Although you can hit with the edge of a rondel dagger, a lot of rondel daggers are clearly not meant to slash with. They are just spikes, either point down or point up. And it's also the context of it is very different. The Bowie knife, apart from being a hunting and bushcraft implement, is something that's used in a dueling context when the dagger, the rondel dagger, is a weapon of backup. It's a backup weapon when your primary weapon is a poleaxe or a longsword or a spear or whatever. And so it's drawn at a different moment in the fight, in a different context. And of course, you've got to deal with armor, going for gaps in armor. You know, you're sometimes gripping it like a little crowbar. It's just a very, very different thing. So despite the fact that they're both knives, to me, it's a bit like comparing apples and oranges. Yes, you can use some rondel techniques with Bowie knife, and yes, you can use some Bowie techniques theoretically with a rondel, but they are different systems, different weapons, different times, different contexts. I hope that answers the question.
It's a good question. Which one do you think is cooler? Because I think Bowie knives are cooler, so I just want to know.
Depends what for. I mean, you know,
aesthetically.
Simple answer.
Aesthetically.
If I'm fighting in armor.
No, aesthetically.
No, I'm going to answer because this is important.
No, it's not.
If I'm fighting in armor against someone else in armor, 100% I'm going to choose the rondel dagger every time.
Yeah, but just for prettiness, which do you like better? I just think Bowie knives have a really satisfyingly cool look.
Yeah, I love Bowie knives, and they're much more useful for lots of other tasks.
Todd makes pretty rondel daggers.
Yeah, that's the thing. Some rondel daggers are really, really good looking. It's a bit like asking me, do I prefer a hammer or an axe?
Obvious answer. How do you not know? Hammer.
I didn't know which one she was going to say.
So hammer or axe? I feel like everyone would choose hammer. I'd choose hammer.
I prefer axes, I think, thinking about it.
Well, maybe that's why we're a good team. There's another good question here for you.
That's Jason Kolopinski again. So, follow-up. Do you think the modern competition meta has taken too many people away from the close study of historic sources, namely graceful movements, philosophical underpinnings, etc.? There's a loaded question. So fundamentally, yes, I do think that modern competition has been detrimental to the study of historical European martial arts within their context. If we take, for example, saber or longsword, actually, clearly to hit someone with a Scheitelhau, with a longsword, is advantageous in a point-scoring tournament because you tap them on the top of the head from the longest possible reach because you're lifting the hands and you're getting the blade in the straight line with the arms, and you tap them on top of the head and you score a point. So that's advantageous, and it's the head as well. And it comes around their guard and they need to move their hands higher to protect from it. And it has all the advantages that a Scheitelhau has. However, a Scheitelhau's a shit cut. If you actually want to, like, if someone's wearing a hat, it will do nothing. If someone's got a massive afro, it will do nothing. If you hit someone on the shoulder with a Scheitelhau, if they're wearing a doublet, probably won't do anything. So it will score. There's an extreme example. It would score a point in a tournament, but it's not very useful martially. So therefore, the majority of cuts in longsword sources are not Scheitelhaus. They're normal Hau. They're an Oberhau or a Fendente. Because that's a proper cut. That's a cut that will chop into something. So yeah, there's a problem because in order to play the meta for the competition, and if we're playing the afterblow rules, different types of afterblow rules, if we're playing right of way, blah blah blah, we're head hunting because a head might score more points than a head chop to someone's leg, which might sever their artery. You know, yes. Whenever we have rules, it corrupts the martial art to some extent. However, this is where I pull it back. Competition serves a purpose which we can't do without. It makes people train to deal with uncooperative opponents. So the problem is, if we were just sort of I don't like to use LARPing in a negative way because there's nothing wrong with LARP, and a lot of my friends do LARP and it's great fun. But if we're just LARPing historical combat and never really pressure testing what we do, then equally we're not really doing a martial art either. The thing is, you could say that in an idealistic world, the only way you can ever really test a martial art is to do exactly what that martial art was intended to do in exactly the context it was intended for. which we can never do. So you have to accept right at the beginning, you can't do that. So you have to do other things. You have to do test cutting. I used to refer to it as the great triangulation. You have to try and recreate the context. You need to look at the methods of cutting and how swords work in reality. You need to look at the laws of the day, the culture of the day. The fact that they weren't always trying to kill each other. Sometimes they were trying to maim or disable each other, or disarm, or take prisoner, or all of these sorts of things. It's very, very complex. And I do wish that there were more people still interested in trying to get to the historical truth of some of these martial arts and understand the context. But some people just want to do swords and have fun and compete, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Can I also add to that, because I think it's a really interesting question, that I think it's also worth bearing in mind that there are a really large number of people who are made interested in the history by being drawn into the sport or martial arts side of things. And in order to keep a subject within sort of the national consciousness and people interested in it, I think sports and martial arts really help in the other direction as well, to get more people interested in the actual beginnings of the topic too.
There's another whole aspect to this whole thing as well, and that's about trying to be taken seriously. So when HEMA started, one of the things we struggled with the most was being taken seriously as a martial art. Well, I can tell you, a kendoka, a person doing kendo, or a person doing modern Olympic style fencing, the best way to get them to take you seriously is to fence them and beat their ass. And the fact is, you need people who can actually put up or shut up. You need people who can actually walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And it's no good being, well, I'm not saying it's no good, but historians have a place, but sports people and martial artists have a place as well. And you need both together. It's great if that person can be both people, but most people can't be both.
Yeah.
Most people can be a great historian or a great teacher or a great student or a great fighter, great martial artist, great competitor. You need the fully rounded set of people. And if you're going to go to a big public event and wow people with how, wow, European martial arts are really freaking cool, you need people who are really good at fighting. So it's simple as that. And very often those people who are very good at fighting are the people who just focus on being really good at fighting. So you need all the things, basically. But I do think that sometimes we, internally within HEMA, we sometimes take tournaments and things like HEMA ratings and stuff. We maybe focus so much on those things that we forget where HEMA's coming from sometimes. Some people, but not all people.
Hashtag not all people. So you have a super chat that we're just going to jump into briefly.
Thank you for the super chat. It's really nice. Just so you know, incidentally, so super chats are really appreciated on live streams for a really basic mechanical reason. Live streams don't really earn money. So the normal videos you do that might get, 50, 80, 100, 200,000 views earn money, but live streams by themselves earn practically no money. So super chats are really appreciated because they make up for not having spent the time doing a normal paying video. McJake 8926 says, I'm so happy that all of these people are watching right now. You deserve it. Thank you. That's really kind. Yeah. Or I really should plan these live streams, should I? Instead of just
wouldn't be as fun.
Also, do you know what blemished and munitions grade mean on Cult of Athena? Vaguely. I'll come back to that in a second. Thinking of buying the LK Chin Shamshir. So do you know what? Lucy, scroll away from it again. Munitions. So munitions grade. No, do you know what? I don't. The best thing is maybe someone else, because I have had communications with Cult of Athena, but I've not bought from them because we're in the UK and I don't think they even export to the UK because of our stupid shipping and laws here. So I'm not 100% sure and I don't want to get it wrong. So I'm sorry. Thank you for the super chat, but I don't want to say bullshit, so I don't know. But it's something to do with the obviously the condition. It's like seconds and stuff like that, I think.
That's a wonderful question.
Yeah, so Theodore says, are you interested in medieval surgery and do you own any medieval surgical tools?
No, but we should. That's cool.
So I have a passing interest in medieval surgery. And for example, Henry V's, when he was the Prince of Wales, arrow that was removed out of his face from the Battle of Shrewsbury. I've read quite a bit about that, and it's actually really interesting for someone interested in the weapons and also archery and arrows versus armor type stuff. Because, of course, he was the son of Henry IV, and he was wounded in the face with an arrow. Now, believe it or not, there aren't many cases from history of where we have a lot of detail of someone being wounded by an arrow. And there's a very, very good book, which I cannot remember the name of right now, which I listened to the audiobook version of, which explains in depth, because the records survive, of the surgery that was carried out involving wine, I believe, and various poultices as they healed him of his, and it took months and months and months as they extracted the arrow and then inserted something into the wound and then gradually reduced the depth of that thing, and it was changed every day and this kind of stuff. So they did amazing. It was I can't remember his name now, but there was a London-based surgeon who treated future Henry V for that arrow wound, and clearly a few people in the medieval world had, for the time, advanced surgical knowledge and understanding. But your typical person that wasn't the son of the King of England wouldn't have had access to those people. So I don't own any surgical instruments or replicas thereof from the medieval period. But yes, I do have an interest in that. I think it's absolutely fascinating, but it's not something I know an awful lot about.
Regarding the previous question, according to Mr. White Rabbit, blemished equals cosmetic imperfections, munitions grade equals some structural imperfections, generally still okay. Guy's jumping around, man. Just talk amongst yourselves for a second.
We're just reading comments. I think people are, so I know that I have a tendency to try to keep talking at all costs, but having watched some other people's live streams like Scalograms and various other people, I'm starting to realize it's okay to be quiet for a moment while I read comments.
Oh, controversial. What do you think of Savat?
That's an interesting question. So yeah. Goose Hunter says, what do I think of Savat? Do you think it's really a martial art for gentlemen? So straight up, I'll say it's not something I've researched, but I've spent quite a bit of time in France, and I've actually known quite a lot of people that did Savat and Lacan, which seem to be adjacent. They seem to be usually the people that do Savat also do Lacan. So I've got mixed opinions of Savat. So bear in mind that something can be real and historical, but still not necessarily very good.
So tactful.
Well, that's true, isn't it?
I like it?
So I've always tried to point out, so I've spent my whole life, certainly academic life, studying history. And just because something's a historical source, it can be valuable historically and of interest, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily right or good. So a typical example would be if we look at an account of the Battle of Towton. This is something I've posted about a bit recently. So the Battle of Towton supposedly happened in 1461 in a snowstorm, and the Yorkist archers trounced the Lancastrian archers during an archery duel. The Lancastrians fled, the Yorkists gave chase and slaughtered them. However, this possibly didn't happen at all. And certainly all of those elements I've just described, even if the Battle of Towton happened, those elements might not have happened. The reason that we think we know about the Battle of Towton is because it's written about 100 years later in a Tudor source, of course, them being the inheritors of the Lancastrian line, predominantly in via the Battle of Bosworth. And so therefore it's a deeply biased and possibly completely fabricated source. So something can be historical, can give enormous amount of detail about something, but still fundamentally be flawed. And this can also be true of martial arts lineages or treatises. So I don't necessarily like all fencing treatises. There are some fencing treatises I think are kind of bullshit.
Which ones? Tell us.
I won't tell you necessarily which ones I think are bullshit.
He'll tell me afterwards, though.
Well, no,
Yeah,
because I don't know. But I know, for example, Thomas Page was a guy that was writing about Highland swordsmanship in the middle of the 18th century. And I know some people that study 18th century sources that think that Thomas Page was a bullshitter. And there's some evidence to suggest maybe he was. Doesn't mean that he didn't necessarily know how to do some things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything he wrote was true. Anyway, so that aside, what do I think about Savat? I think that Savat is definitely historical. I think that the people that are doing it today seem to be doing what they were doing back in the Edwardian period or Belle Epoque. Do I think that it would work on the street? Nah, not very much, no. I think that it's a sort of early form of kickboxing. But imagine if someone went into the UFC octagon today only having done kickboxing. I think they would probably get quite messed up. What do you think, Lucy?
I don't know what Savat is.
Basically kickboxing. It's a form of French kickboxing from the Edwardian period.
I don't think your viewers want me to info dump about MMA. I think this is a weapons channel. Come to my channel and we'll do that there. But no, I think, these days, no. Obviously, you need to have
I've got problems with Savat because I think that Savat was supposed to work in an environment where most people had weapons. And I think that just teaching someone to fend off someone who's likely to have a knife or potentially even a sword at that point, or a sword stick, things like this, or just a club, cudgel, with Savat, I think it might enable you to run away. It might buy you some time while you find.
Sometimes that's all you
need. Which is fine. It might enable you to buy some time so you can run away. But I don't think most people are going to be able to use Savat to win against someone with a knife, basically. And there's the problem is that Savat, as I see it, was supposed to be a self-defense system. And I don't think it's a particularly good self-defense system. I think you're better off with something like Bartitsu or Jiu-Jitsu, which were both things.
Ultimately, you're always just better off with Jiu-Jitsu.
but in the Edwardian period, Jiu-Jitsu was not widely, but it was being taught to, suffragettes and the police and the military and all sorts. Jiu-Jitsu was a thing already in Edwardian Europe. So I think if you were learning self-defense in the year 1905, you would have been better off doing boxing, which is perfectly good. Boxing, maybe add some kicks to it, which you could learn in Savat. Do some jiu-jitsu, learn some knife fighting and some fencing, and off you go. Then you've got Edward, and that's basically what Bartitsu was.
I do now want to go and learn what Savat is.
Yeah, we'll go and watch some videos. But I think that Savat is a little bit theoretical, and I think wouldn't stand up very well against someone who had done boxing and jiu-jitsu.
Give me a fortnight and I'll have a strong opinion about that, I'm sure. So you have another super chat. Thank you very much.
Yay, thank you. So Sick Metal Maggot for Life. That is a wicked name. I love it. I want that on a t-shirt. Do you do t-shirts? I can see you've got what looks like maybe an anime avatar there. I love it. Sick Metal Maggot for Life. Researching US Civil War sword use. Hot take. The 1840 Marine Corps NCO sword is superior to the 1840 NCO sword. Less clumsy, better speed and distal taper and good bevel. Excellent in the test cut. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I'll go with that. I'll be straight up. I have had a fair number of US Civil War swords through my hands over the years, and they're all right. I think I'm not a huge fan of the 1840 Spadroon, we could call it, but it's probably better than the British 1796 Spadroon, which doesn't take too much. Nick Thomas is going to hate me for saying that. But here's another hot take.
Why would Nick Thomas hate you for saying that?
Because he loves spadroons. No, he actually we actually more or less agree on spadroons off camera, but
He's got a great car.
we like to he has got a nice but anyway, talking about my car. Anyway.
Your car's fine, it's not a Mustang. So another super chat.
but just a final thing on US Civil War swords. I actually really like the wrist breaker, the 1840. Now bear in mind that most mid-19th century people were smaller and I won't say weaker, but were kind of smaller stature than we are now. I'm 6'1", and I know from reading lots of historical sources that I would have been considered pretty big in the Victorian period. So for me, an 1840 US cavalry sword is lovely. I love the big beast of the thing. But apparently it was considered a wrist breaker by some. But I've had one and I loved it. And it was really well sharpened as well, the one I had. 1860 model, it's fine. It's like the French 1822. Right.
You have another super chat. Thank you very much.
Yay, KLPZ. Right. Can't wait to see more videos about your new English armour. Have you noticed anything significant and how it fits, moves and protects compared to your previous Italianate armours? Well, first thing, so yes, I have, is the short answer. And second thing to say is I've still got my Italian export armour. And I'm probably not going to get rid of it anytime soon because I really like it. Now, the main thing to note, the two main things, in fact, are the kind of main two obvious things. Firstly, the fold or skirt on the English armour is longer, which is great because it protects your groin better and is better for fighting on foot. It's no coincidence that when we look at foot combat armours from the 16th century, just as my friend Toby Catbar points out, they have long folds, and the English and the French also have long folds for fighting on foot because the English and the French, thanks to archery, largely like to fight on foot. So a foot combat armour has a longer skirt, and Italian armour has a shorter skirt, which is more comfortable for sitting on a horse. So for me, given that I don't ride horses yet, and I fight on foot, a long fold makes all kind of sense, protects my groin better, means I don't have to have as much mail down there.
You can't say groin on the internet.
I say groin, crotch then. I'm a crotch.
You joke.
I didn't say that's okay.
Don't necessarily read this out loud, but this is the next question.
But the other thing I think not a lot of people know is my pauldrons. So my pauldrons look huge. If anything, they're slightly oversized, but anyway, they look massive, but they have way better mobility than Italian pauldrons. And the reason is Italian pauldrons have reinforcers on them, a big reinforce on the left and a fairly big one on the right, which mean that with Italian pauldrons, when you lift your arms up here, they go clunk into your head. So you can only usually lift your arms to about there, slightly above horizontal with Italian. Whereas the English armour, I can literally put my arms up like this because they don't have the reinforcers and they concertina all fully up inside. Not to say that the Italians sometimes didn't also have pauldrons like that. Some Italian armours, in fact, if we look at Filippo Vardi's treatise where he's fighting on foot with pole axes, he has pauldrons that seem to be doing this. Frederick the Victorious's armour in Switzerland they're kind of halfway between spaulders and pauldrons, but they're very big at the back. They do the same thing. So very clearly for fighting on foot, to give you more mobility, they have this type of pauldron without the big reinforcers that give as much mobility as a spalder does. So those are the two main differences. I will do more videos about it. It needs lots of tweaks, and in fact, particularly, well, there are many things actually, and I won't bore you with it, but it needs a lot of tweaks. So it's very useful I still have my Italian export armour because I know all of the ins and outs of that. The English armour I'm still very much getting used to, and there are certain things on it which at the moment aren't working great, and I need to get them adjusted to get them working better. Anyway, there we go.
Don't necessarily read that out if you don't want to.
So Dead Wolf Resistance 13 says, have you ever heard of John Clements? Not only have I heard of John Clements, I know John Clements. So bear in mind that I'm from the 90s.
You
So
are from way earlier than the 90s.
Yeah, but you know, I was in my prime in the 90s. I'm so past my prime now. No, so I know John Clements really, really well. Yes. And he was incredibly important to the early days of HEMA. He's still out there. He's still doing stuff. I think he doesn't do social media very much and that kind of stuff. But the Armour, ARMA, his organization, the Association for Renaissance Martial Arts, used to be the HACA, the Historical Armed Combat Association, and the HACA and the HACA Forum was where loads of us who started out in what was then called WMA, Western Martial Arts, met online. So yeah, it was very important back in the day. And I've had a beer with John and chatted with him. He's a good, fun guy. And I don't agree with lots of his hot takes on HEMA and stuff. He used to be very big. He's most famous for Flatimer Strong video, which has been memed widely, that we all like to have a laugh about. He was a big exponent of parrying with the flat, not with the edge, which I completely disagree with for a million reasons. Not a million reasons, like 10 reasons. But that is what it is. I can disagree with lots of people and still be friends with them and still get on with them. And I think that's a really important thing in the modern world, because these days we live in very divisive times. And I think it's really important to remember that you can disagree with someone, you can vote differently, you can speak a different language, you can have all sorts of different views or different religions or whatever else, and still get on with them. And that's really important. And my friends, some of my best friends, have very different views on me to all sorts of things. And that's cool. That's fine. Okay. Right. Good.
There is another super chat, but it's not for you.
Oh.
It's for me.
Screw you. I'm out of here.
It says, Any All says, this one is for Lucy. How did you get into the world of HEMA and how has been your experience throughout the journey? P.S. You're both wonderful. See, you're included in it after all. I got into HEMA in my early 20s because my brother-in-law started up a local HEMA club. He had moved down from Yorkshire to us, and yeah, he was starting up a club, and I went along purely to be a very supportive sister-in-law, thinking that it all sounded a bit silly, and had a brilliant time, and very rapidly was fully indoctrinated into the world of HEMA, and I have been doing it ever since. The cult of HEMA. But yeah, no, it's Oz Ostwick of English Martial Arts is the entire reason that I am in HEMA, and the reason that I did catch wrestling and that I now do jiu-jitsu. So he is a pusher of martial arts. And a very good one at that. Such a weird way to describe your brother-in-law.
You thought that was good. Check out this stuff.
Which is, yes, an accurate representation of Oz. But yeah, that's why I'm in HEMA. And although I am more peripherally involved in HEMA now, I do still teach classes from time to time. But I'm mostly really into jiu-jitsu. So
Davina Duckworth makes a point about they kicked off the HEMA Renaissance in terms of the hacker. So that is true to a very large extent, but I do want to actually give credit to some other people who I think are not widely enough credited. One of those is Mike Loades. Now, some of you will know Mike Loades, and long before I'd ever heard about WMA, Western Martial Arts, or English Martial Arts, I first studied with Terry Brown and all of this kind of stuff. Long before that, when I was a teenager, I was introduced to the videos of Mike Loades. Now, Mike Loades is that guy who's bald like me, older than me. He's been around a long time, since the 70s, I think, doing stage choreography, but with a sort of historical twist and trying to look at how things were actually done historically. And I had his videos from when I was about 15, I think. And he used to have a stand at the Park Lane Arms Fair, which was a very important antique arms collectors fair, which I started going to when I was about 14, 15. And he was there, and I bought his VHS video and I played the crap out of it for years. It was brilliant. He referenced George Silva, Achille Marozzo. He showed pictures from Joachim Meyer. This stuff, I'd never seen this stuff before. So this was actually my introduction to historical Europe, what would later be known as historical European martial arts, was actually through Mike Lodes. And Mike Lodes, I've had the pleasure of sort of chatting with him over the years and stuff. We've never really done any stuff physically together, but we nearly have done several times. And he's still out there, still doing great stuff. I actually think he lives in the USA now. Good for him. He can own more guns than I can now. But he has also written books about dogs. He's done stuff with chariots and historical archery. A great guy. Obviously, he was within the sphere of John Waller, another very, very important person who established the essentially the fight interpretation team at the Royal Armouries in Leeds. And he also was in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He had some fight choreography involvement of that. So John Waller, Mike Lodes, various other people associated with that scene. Also, William Hobbs, Bill Hobbs, who was a fight director who coordinated the fights in The Duelists, Rob Roy, I think Cyrano de Bergerac, and a bunch of other things. And Bill Hobbs was a fencing coach who got into choreography, but he understood how to make fights look more like actual fights. And again, I think he almost certainly knew Lodes and Waller well and was in that kind of time period and stuff. And I had the pleasure of meeting him actually a few years ago at the Royal Armour. He's a really nice guy. So yeah, so there were lots of people that came before the era of John Clements and before the era of Matt Easton who laid the groundwork, the foundations for what we have now. So full credit to them. Maybe we should do a kind of history of modern HEMA book one day. I think someone was working on one, but
or just do
maybe it was
video.
Richard. Maybe it was Richard Marston.
Just
but anyway,
you could do a video on it.
Yeah, maybe I could probably even get some people on it because
100%.
So Jonathan Waller, John Waller's son, is still around out there, and maybe I could get him on and stuff like that. So yeah, there we go.
I've highlighted a question for you from Thomas Smith.
Thomas Smith says, "Hi Matt, I'm learning modern fencing. Good stuff. Whenever people come to me, if they've got like kids under the age of 16 who want to do HEMA, I would say do modern fencing because unfortunately, we can't take kids under 16 at the moment due to insurance and various other things. So modern fencing, great. Do people during the Renaissance also use blunt weapons or intentionally making their weapons blunt and wearing protective armor when they're dueling? Yes, is the simple answer to that. So the word foil originally meant a blunt rapier. So the earliest foils we have surviving are literally blunt nail-headed, much like the old modern fencing equipment, which just has a forged steel nail tip to the end of it. And they attached, if you look at Joseph Swetnam, he describes attaching a small padded ball to the end, just like an épée or a foil. But obviously they're bigger, they're rapiers, so they've got like 40-inch blades, or 45-inch blades, 50-inch blades sometimes, with a swept hilts. Absolutely, they had blunt, flexible rapiers. Before that, they had blunt, flexible longswords, feder shirt. And they also had wasters, wooden swords as well. And there's the dussac, which is leather, probably, sometimes wood, combination of the two. So yes, they used blunt swords. They had specific rules to make things safe. They wore protective equipment. So there are fencing doublets, which survived from the 16th and 17th centuries, which had baleen, or the whalebone, as it's sometimes described, but it's not actually technically bone, it's cartilage, I think, inside, so stiffened doublets. They wore fencing mask doesn't come along till much later, till I think the end of the 17th century, beginning of the 18th century. It's kind of strap-on mask. It looks a bit like a Jason mask, and that's where the fencing mask comes from. But almost certainly they wore forms of helmet and stuff for safe fencing before that. We know they wore gauntlets sometimes because that's shown in Palus Hector Mare in the sword and buckler. So yes, they wore safety equipment. They used blunted swords, pretty much like HEMA does. The only big difference between what we do in HEMA now, or modern fencing, in fact, and medieval and Renaissance stuff is the fencing mask. The fencing mask we have now is really a 19th century style fencing mask, but it comes from earlier head protection.
You have another super chat.
Yay. Merrill Russell says, lovely to see you both online. I'm up here in the Seattle area. Great. Big fan of Seattle music. Had a very big impact on my teenage years and still does to this day. I'm not wearing my my Sangam t-shirt. Have you seen Odyssey yet? No, I haven't, but I think I'd quite like to. Quite a bit of archery in it, some pretty lame. Would love your review. You know what? I don't know if I need to do a review of it because I have seen other people have done really good reviews of it. So I watched Lindy Beige's review of it a couple of days ago.
Blumenek's done one.
Blumenek's done one. So Blumenek's done a review of the archery side of it. Lindy Beige has done a review of it from the point of view of the actual original text and that kind of stuff. And other people have done, like, there isn't, as I understand it, there isn't much to review in terms of the sword fighting because there isn't really much and it's very simple, which is fine. So I will watch it, I think, at some point. I don't know whether I'll see it in the cinema or not. I don't think Lucy's got. Do you want to see it in the cinema?
Yeah, I'm happy to go and see it. It's got Spider-Man in it. Spider-Man and Zendaya.
But the funny.
So yeah, I'll watch it.
But the thing is, Spider-Man is also in the cinema, so we could do like a back to back.
Can we go and see Spider-Man instead?
Let's just go and watch Spider-Man.
Maybe we'll just go and watch Spider-Man. Well, no, we can see both. But I do like Spider-Man.
Maybe they do a double bill: Spider-Man BC and Spider-Man AD.
Both fun with fiction, right? I had one comment for you, but it's gone now. Instantly, in response to what is better, hammers or axes, it was a very split vote. Yeah, cool. It's good, Davina. It's good that you looked up Mike Loads' stuff. If you're on Facebook, go to Mike Loads' Facebook page because he actually posts quite a lot of interesting stuff on there. I think he's got an Instagram as well. But yeah, I mean, he has been in so many documentaries over the years, and he's, you know, good. He does horseback archery, does stuff from chariots. He's done everything. Yeah. So Gabriel, is that Gabriel I know? Anyway, what do we know about the way that fencing masters and their students used to spar and how they avoided injuries? That is a big question, actually. We do know stuff. So there are, so my friend Fabrice from Dijon in Burgundy has researched the fencing guild rules there. And I know there are similar ones from other places, I think like Strasbourg and various other places, where they actually describe the punishments for injuring someone in the fencing salle, in the fencing club. And there are financial, there are fines. So you have to pay a fine, for example, if you fart in class. And yeah, seriously. Serious?
Yeah. If you break wind in class, there is a fine. It's a small one. It's a small fine.
Harsh, man.
But if you poke someone's eye out, if you blind them in one eye, there's a really big fine. So there were financial penalties for injuring people. There were undoubtedly also social sort of ostracization. Is that a word? And kind of, you know, like,
oh my God, what is that word?
To ostracize someone, to cast them out of society. Ostracization. I think I just invented that word. But anyway, yeah, there were penalties, and they used, you know, for the most part, most fencing schools obviously used blunted weapons or wooden weapons or dusaks. However, we know that some did some training with sharp weapons because some sources talk about the virtues of training with sharp weapons. However, that was probably for advanced students, and probably they were very careful because fundamentally, injuring people or killing people in historical time periods was not just frowned upon. It could have very big legal repercussions. You know, you could end up in jail. For example, self-defense had to be proven. So even in the medieval period, it wasn't like Conan the Barbarian, kind of like anything goes world. If you killed someone in London or Paris in the 14th century, then you'd be pulled up in front of the court And if it could be proven that it was self-defense, so if there were witnesses or if you were injured, if this person was known to be a ne'er-do-well, this kind of stuff, you could get off scot-free if it was declared as self-defense. And this is exactly the same in the modern world. Now, people say a lot of things about UK laws. I don't disagree with some of the things that people say. But if you kill someone in UK law, if you kill someone in self-defense and you genuinely, your life was at risk and you can prove it, you won't go to prison for it, because we have the law of self-defense of equal and appropriate force. And they had this in the medieval period pretty similar. I think it was probably slightly looser in the medieval period. But yeah, so anyway, I've gone off on a tangent. But the fundamental point was that absolutely in fencing schools they used safety equipment, they used safe training methods. I think they relied more on methodology rather than equipment than we do now. And I think to a certain degree, it's great that we've got really safe equipment, but some people don't behave in the best way as a result. I think they rely too much on the fact that they've got a blunt sword and the person's wearing the best safety gear that money can buy in 2026, and they use too little care. And we see a lot of injuries done in sparring or in inter-club sparring events or HEMA events or competitions, which could have been avoided if people were just a little bit more careful. Because fundamentally, no matter how much protective gear you put on, if you want to hurt the other person, you can do. Okay, so we still need to have caution, and they always did, and even more then because they used less safety equipment. So yeah, so we've got some sources describing it, not as much as we would like. We don't know an awful lot about how training was done within clubs or between teacher and student, but we know some, and there are some sources that talk about it like a dialogue in the 17th century, and so yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Here is another question for you.
Goose hunter. Do you know, does goose taste? I can't remember if I had goose.
There's a food.
Yeah. Does goose taste good? I must have done.
Well, it's kind of gamey, but it's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, goose hunter. Are you a big fan of goose? I like duck. I'm a massive fan of duck. But anyway,
duck is a bugger to cook, though. I
love duck. Do you know of any written sources containing hand-to-hand combat techniques and weapons of the Latin American tribes, i.e. Mayans, Aztecs, or Olmecs? Sadly, no. So they're obviously during the period of conquest and exploration of the Spanish and Portuguese, they do write about combat with the people that they were fighting. But the problem is it's highly biased, and they say a lot of things we know weren't true. But there are some really interesting things, like we know that the Mesoamericans were using slings, staff slings, for example, to quite, from what I've read, quite devastating effect in some cases. Obviously, we know about the obsidian bladed weapons, both swords, spears, and obviously arrows, but also glaive-like things, partisan-type things.
I don't know about those.
Oh, I've got a good video about it. I'll send you the link. But yeah, so the fact that obsidian was a thing meant that they could make,
thing in Minecraft.
They could make, that they could make some pretty cool weapons. But we don't really know much about the way they were used, no. Apart from the fact that they did probably have quite developed schools and systems for training, particularly the Aztec Jaguar guys. I can't remember what they're called now, with the macuitl and the shield. They must have been training somehow, but we don't know very much about it. We know that they had their kind of sports with the basketball type things with the hoops and the rings that you have to put the. So yeah, they had some developed training methodologies, but I don't think any of it survives in any kind of written form. No.
Just so you know, we are nearly out of questions. So if anyone has any more questions, given that our legs, I don't know about yours, mine are asleep. Yeah,
we should probably wind up in the next 5 minutes, I would say. Anyway, so hold on, what's that? Oh, hi, Jonathan, Medieval Genie from Fight Camp. Any thoughts on properly restoring or preserving that tulwar I got at the event? So wire wool is probably your friend. Wire wool and some oil, and then look after it in the way you'd look after any other sword. But yeah, I wouldn't do much more to it than that, to be honest. But wire wool, steel wool is on most steel. Don't use it on brass, but on most steel or iron, you're not going to do much with that.
There is another question for you, and it's a great question.
Theodore, are you more fond of pre-gunpowder era of war, or do muskets and cannons still pique your interest?
Cannons are great.
I mean, I own a cannon. I own a swivel gun. I have featured it on the channel, I think.
It's
once.
the family swivel gun.
Or is it Matt's swivel gun?
We'll ask Gavin.
No, I'll get you a swivel gun. You can have a swivel gun.
Hang on a minute.
But that's my swivel gun.
You all heard him. Now, if he refuses to get me my own swivel gun.
Yeah, I mean,
I
want another swivel gun in the house.
Also, the cannons, like ship cannons there.
No, I mean, I shoot black powder guns. So I mean, this is deactivated, by the way, but there we go. I absolutely freaking love 19th century guns. I shoot Winchester lever action. I've got an SMLE Lee Enfield 303. I've got a couple of black powder revolvers. I've got black powder shotguns. I've got breech loading hammer shotguns. I've got muskets. I've got Martini Henrys. Yes, I like guns. And if I lived anywhere except the UK, I would undoubtedly own a lot more guns. I do shoot modern stuff as well. So I was in Army Cadets when I was younger. So I've shot SA-80 LSW, and I never shot GPMG, unfortunately. But I've shot all sorts of stuff. I've even got a 2.2 semi-auto HK 416 clone and all that kind of stuff. Yes, I like guns. I like all kinds of guns of all periods, and I like gunpowder era warfare and pre-gunpowder era warfare. I like all arms and armor.
Someone's asked regarding what you said earlier about streams not making money. So that wasn't like a literal not making any money. It's because of the number of views. So live streams are brilliant for those of us who are there and watching, but only a very small number of people watch them in comparison with the number of people that watch the main channel videos. Therefore, the amount of money that you make for the time that you put in is nominal. So he's not saying he doesn't make any money at all from them. It's just that compared to a normal video, it's a very different thing. But that doesn't mean like do super chats and stuff if you can't afford to.
No, not at all. And I'm fine. I mean,
we're all cool.
I don't,
stuck to my stool, but that's another issue.
I have other jobs, so I'm fine. I was just saying the I don't want you to think we do live streams for the sweet money. Live streams are nice because it feels like we're actually interacting with you, and obviously we can't physically talk with you, but it's really nice actually feeling like we're in contact with the viewers like this, rather than just comments underneath a video that might be 2 weeks old or whatever. Incidentally, this is one of my favorite firearms I own. It is a blunderbuss.
Oh, that's always cool.